Good morning. I'm here at TWI Surveys, and you can see in the background that we're still under construction. We're hoping we'll be done here in the next couple weeks. The other thing that's very exciting going on around here right now, my wife and office manager, Allie, is expecting in 3 weeks from now. So we're going to have a little girl running around the office here pretty soon, if not crawling. But today I want to start a new series, a blog series that looks at the history of employee research and its evolution over time, and what that means for us today. You see, I thought this was a great time to go into some of our history because we're going through such radical change. Social media will change the research industry, and specifically the research industry when it comes to employees. As we look at the evolution of intranet and the collaboration of processes that happen on them, that will be our new source of research and observation for how and what employees do, think, and feel. And how we use that information should be grounded in wisdom. And so where do we get those presumptions, those things that we take as givens? They come from our history, and those people have influenced us. So I want to start by talking about two key philosophers of management that influence our thought on just about everything we do in organizations today. The first is probably going to be an obvious one for a lot of people. If you haven't heard of him, I encourage you to actually go back and read some of his original writings. It's Frederick Taylor, okay? Frederick Winslow Taylor. He is considered the father of scientific management. And he had an engineering background, and he looked for the one best way of doing things. And he did most of his research in his time through observation. And with that observation, he tried to come up with cleaner processes. Now, an interesting part that came out of his approach and his one best way was the belief in it that people would comply with what he was coming up with. He wanted to seek certainty, and if there was one best way of doing something, he thought that people should just do it. Now, that being said, within his original writings, he was much more balanced than he's given credit for. He did have one of his key priorities be motivation, which would take a sense of understanding of human behavior. Now, the downside to his motivation is he just believed you had to incent it. So it didn't take on to those other aspects that we learn much later on in different disciplines. The second person I want to talk about is someone who's less known, but equally as important, which is Mary Parker Follett, who represents the beginning of the humanistic management perspective. Now, Mary Parker happened at the same time as Frederick Taylor, but it's always thought of that we have this progressive movement that believes and understands and values employees, and we have this scientific movement which compels and commands and controls them, and looks at the Max Weber version of bureaucracy as professionalism. So Mary Parker was at that same time, and so concurrently we've always had these two streams of management thought, one that looks to make things more efficient and better at productivity, and the other one that looks at how and why people behave the way they do. Mary Parker had a government background, and she was heavily influenced by democracy, which I am as well, and she also looked at things in a collaborative and participative approach. And so as we look at the different philosophies that have come out of this and the applications, we see HR departments and retention programs that have born out of her original philosophies, and we've seen total quality management and Sigma 6 approaches that have born out of that scientific management philosophy. So the 2 points I want to really lay on today and come out of these two things with is what does this still do to us today? Well, one, when we're designing research, we want to test what we've done to people. And so this comes primarily out of that look from Frederick Taylor. It says, we've applied a program, we've applied some messaging. How did they respond? We test it, and then if they didn't do it right, we'll look for the one best way. The second thing that I want to pull out of this is from that humanistic management standpoint. Why do people do what they do, and how do we have them work with us? Okay, so the process is about involving people in the change, and when doing that, our research becomes part of the ends. The journey is the point, and so as we involve those people, it creates the change. So bring us all the way back to today. Social media, conversational approaches to management are now becoming more scalable than ever. The ability to involve people in decision making is becoming more approachable. So I'm interested to know what you believe the roots of our management, our communications, our HR practices have done to where we are today, and what the opportunities are going for the future based on what we've learned from the past. So please do comment on this blog. Let me know if it was useful, and if not, what would you find more useful? So thank you very much from TWI Surveys. It's Ryan Williams signing off, and look forward to your comments.